What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another vlog. Like, I'm the tech out here, and today will be the perfect time for me to take out my Insta360 Pro 2 and just kind of do like a small little vlog. Actually, I am downtown Anchorage because I live in Alaska, and right now it's pretty bright out here. So I'm actually using the new ND filter that I bought for the Ace Pro 2. Now, the weird thing about these ND filters is that there's a rubber piece over the little glass part or the thing, shield thingy that sits over the lens. So you actually have to remove that in order for you to actually put on the ND filter, which I didn't know. So now that I figured that out like 10 minutes ago, I'm just out here vlogging. Just wanted to get a nice little vlog in. I'm shooting in 4K at 30. I'm using my Hollyland. These are the Lark MS2s, or the Mark L2, the Mark M2Ss. So these are the newer versions of the ones that I have at home. And we're just kind of taking a nice little travel vlog. So I'm right here actually downtown. I forgot where I'm on C Street, North C Street. This is actually just downtown on C Street, as if you're familiar with Alaska. C Street. This is like kind of where the train depots, and people who like to take the scenic routes through interior Alaska. This is kind of where you would go, be right around here. So just over there is where you would find the train district. So you simply go there, grab your ticket, and then you just hop on the train. Actually, there's a train that just went by. I doubt seriously we'll be able to see it because, there's no trains here. I think they've already gone. But I will show you another popular site that Alaskans love to go to, especially when it comes to fishing. It's just kind of right over here in the corner. We get a lot of people who come into Costco's and they buy these huge fishing nets that we carry. Seasonal, usually around like March, April, May is usually won't have some, and then they kind of come down here to, I forgot the name of the lake, but it's a really popular place aside from you driving outside of town. But it's a very popular place, and we're actually going to go there right now. Just going to cross the street here really quick. So what do you think about the audio quality of the Lark M2S is right now? It's a little bit windy out here, not too bad, but this is kind of like beginning downtown. It's just like where Anchorage started here, and then it just kind of went further up, as we saw in the other videos. Actually, if you go further down, there's the port where we get all our domestic imports and things like that imported into Alaska. Don't think I can actually walk over there. I don't think there's really a place that you can actually travel over there. There's also other hotels that are kind of around here. You can probably hear the train also, which is probably down over there. So there's a lot of hotels. It's a pretty, very, very touristy place down here. A lot of tourists come down here. A lot of people come out from out of town, and they come down here and they can get some fish, and they can just bring it back with them. They usually will stop somewhere and pack it up. And if you live in Alaska, you just take it with you. If you don't, you usually will just simply just take it with you, and you will just pack it as your carry-on or whatever. And then if you look right around the corner over there, there's a nice little hotel over there. That's downtown. And then as you go further over here, there's more of the port. There's a nice little restaurant. A lot of places have shut down since the last time I've done these kind of vlogs. A few places, there used to be a place up the road, used to be called the Brown Paper Bag. That place kind of no longer exists anymore. But it's just pretty much where a lot of the tourists go. So this is called the Ulu Factory. This is for anyone who doesn't really know a lot about ulus, are basically like nice little native knives and stuff. They make it all factory here in Alaska. And this is like the inside. It's like a giant factory that you can actually tour, and you can actually look at. It's actually kind of cool. I have never done it myself. Even living here in Alaska, I've never really done it. Just wasn't really my thing. But this is another popular spot that people love to go fishing, and we're actually going to go right down over in the corner really quick, and then I'm just going to kind of show you just kind of what people do, especially in the summertime, especially when it starts to get warm. I don't know if there's anyone down here now, but there's usually people that are out here fishing for something, and it doesn't really look like there's anybody out here right now. This is Russian. I have no idea what river this is, but this is generally where a lot of Alaskans, like I said, will come into Costco's, they'll buy their nets, and then they just kind of come down here and they just fish. So you might see like one or two. I think it's a little early right now, but usually later on in the day, you start to see like everything over here is just kind of just lined up. You have people on other sides, people further up. They're just down here catching, I think, reds and coppers. And as you can see, there's some over here. You know, people bring their kids. And there's a pretty cool thing. There's a nice little restaurant that kind of sits across from it. And then across over here, it's just more industrial stuff. You got the bridge. This is what connects to Elmore Air Force Base, obviously our Air Force Base. And we'll probably see if we can try and maybe see if we can see the port. I tried before a few times and never really could get around there because I couldn't really figure out how to get there. But it's a really nice day, and I thought I'd really take out my Ace Pro and just kind of get some really cool video footage. Like I said, I've only had it for 2 days. I've been taking a lot of photos, so stay tuned for some photos. I'll be bombing those a lot. But like I said, it's a tourist place. There's a lot of touristy stuff. So you get like these little nice little, little information panels and things like that. And, there's stuff like that. And every once in a while, it's very occasionally, sometimes you'll run into a bear or a moose. It's not often, but it does tend to happen occasionally. But it is kind of cool. And also going to show you a little bit further down, once we get past the railroad, downtown Anchorage, or like where the earthquake had hit Anchorage and just kind of made that. So you might be able to see a little bit of the dock from here. Like I said, I don't know how to get in there. I don't think you can actually get in there. I don't think it'll let you because obviously that's part of the state, so we don't want to be getting any trouble. But I might be able to point out some stuff. And maybe like some, might be a train. Nope, no trains. So as I said, a little bit further down over there, that's kind of the port of Anchorage. So that's pretty much where everything comes in that we get for pretty much everything in Anchorage, Alaska. So for like Costco's, cars, Fred Meyer's, all that, this is pretty much where our port is. And actually from where I live, it's only like a 4-mile drive. And I live way on the other side of the city, but it's not that far. So I can understand how people, who live in much larger areas when it comes to driving around and they live, 10, 15 miles. I always assume that it was a short drive, but yeah, so we'll see what we can see. I don't think you'll be able to see much because of the fact that it is the port and it is kind of cut off from kind of a lot of people, I guess, in terms of just people wanting to see it. So you might be able to see something down here, but yeah, as you can see, there's more people fishing down here. Further down the river, they might catch stuff, which is kind of, what a lot of Alaskans do during the summer. I don't myself do it, but I'm not really into fishing. So I am in a shaded area. So I do apologize because like I said, I'm using this ND filter. And yeah, so like I said, we're just out here vlogging, just trying to get a feel for this, because this is gonna probably be my new kind of daily outfit for my just, going out here and vlogging. I'm not gonna be bringing my FX30, a little bit big. I don't feel like when I carry it around, when I can carry this and just simply pop it into this and whatnot. But yeah, it seems to be taking the trail. We're just gonna go see where it goes. Now, the one thing I have to admit, and the one thing that you probably don't know about Alaska, is that between the months of March and say around August, maybe September, we're getting about 18 hours, 19 hours of sunlight. So for those of you that didn't know, yes, Alaska does get a ton of sunlight for about four or 5.5 months-ish. So right now, I'm getting about 18 hours, just slightly over 18 hours of sunlight. I am on vacation, so this is usually when I like to take my vacations, is around the middle of July, because then it allows me to kind of really enjoy the sun. So I have no idea where this trail is going. I've never really walked this far down, but yeah, as we can see, probably see a lot more rivers. So as you can see here, there's more, a river pretty much runs out to the bay. So this is usually where people end up at, because as I showed you earlier, further up the stream, there isn't that many people. But you get down here, if you've ever fished before, you kind of know it's kind of like combat fishing. The further you get down and the more you kind of get around with people. But again, you know, it's just the Alaskan life. That's just kind of how that is. And there'll be people out here for, you know, a couple of hours who might catch something, might not catch something. It really just depends. But yeah, there's people out here for, you know, hours on day. So yeah, it's actually kind of cool. You might not be able to see it in the background, but there's a trailer loading a container. But like I said, everything back there is pretty much all of Port of Alaska. And now we're going to take a trip back. I'm actually going to show you Earthquake Park, and why they call it Earthquake Park. It's probably one of my kind of favorite spots to kind of hang out at when I am on vacation and down here, even during the wintertime when we have breakup, which is usually around like March, April, when you're able to still walk on the snow without it being hard and ice and it's starting to get warmer. I will usually tend to also go down there. So we're gonna kind of take a nice little trip that way via the Anchorage Railway. Had to change batteries, sorry about that. So as you can see, we're going back up. This is the Alaska Railroad Corporation. This is basically, obviously, that's the headquarters for all of the Alaska Railroad Company, which is kind of where we're about to actually walk to. Ship Creek. That's what the name of the river is, Ship Creek. I only remember that because of the sign right there. I don't normally come downtown a lot, even though I live here. I just don't really ever see a reason to come downtown. There's not really a lot that goes on. But in the summertime, you will find a lot of tourists. This is kind of the height of tourist season, is usually around July, August. And the sunnier it is, the much more you'll see outdoors. And it's kind of fun. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Alaska, and there's a lot to do here if you are into, you know, fishing and hiking and all that. Just not really much for hiking. I do love walking around. I do find that I like to go explore things like that, which is why I'm using the Ace Pro 2. Even if I have my Osmo Pocket 3 or even my Action 5, I will still use those also as well. It's just I don't feel like I want to bring my larger camera, but by no means am I getting rid of that FX30 because I love that camera. But for smaller things like this action camera works perfectly fine. Like I said, I got a nice little ND filter on this. It's a newer 16 ND with a polarizer, so it keeps kind of my white balance and everything in check. Even though I do have those on auto and everything else, I am shooting this in 4K 30. I believe I have it with Vivid, I'm not sure. But anyways, so we are walking now past the Alaska Railroad departure and arrival. So as you can see from here, this is pretty much everywhere you go for anything when it comes to when to travel like the interior. So say you want to go to like Whittier, or if you want to go to you know, see Mount Denali or the national park, you would basically just take a train, because the train is generally the most direct way. Plus you don't have to worry about fighting with traffic, especially if you've never driven out there. It can be kind of a pain in the butt. So this is kind of our Alaska Railroad. Pretty much this is where everybody, whether you live in Alaska or if you're visiting, would come down. And as you can see, pretty much this is where you would kind of line up, drop off your luggage, and it gets put on the train itself, and you get up on the little rails over there, and then that's just kind of how that works. I have not done a railroad ever since I've lived up here, so I mean I probably will eventually, but if you are first time to Alaska, highly recommend taking the train system. There's a lot you can see on the train. That's kind of mostly, as you can see from all the hills here, this is what affected, this is what happened when we had the 64 earthquake, the major earthquake that kind of basically almost destroyed all of Anchorage. So a lot of these hills and stuff was a result of the slides that happened. But as you can see, this is the Alaska Railroad right here. And then kind of right over there is just a nice little one of our earlier trains that we had a long time ago. That's a nice little tour bus. We do get a lot of those as well. Again, I would recommend, if you've never been to Alaska and you are ending up downtown, which is generally where a lot of people will end up doing their hotel stays at. Do the nice little Alaska trolley that they have. It's off of 4th Avenue, and it's kind of nice. It drives you all around Anchorage. They kind of talk about, you know, the earthquake and buildings and things that you probably didn't even know about, and even that most Alaskans didn't even really know about. Like myself, I didn't really know a lot about this stuff until I came, you know, kind of did a little bit of snooping around, walking, and just kind of just being you know, curious. And another thing about the port of Alaska, and I don't know if this is true because I do see a lot of people who take their boats, but I've seen people who take their boats and they kind of go out and they just go out into the harbor and then they do their fishing there. But I don't know off the top of my head. I've never really seen it. That's just something I've seen a lot of people doing. So, but we're taking this nice little climb up this hill, and then I just kind of, might be able to see a train, probably not. Usually there's a bike trail that literally goes right next to a train. It's like maybe a couple of feet at best next to it. So it's one of those things we just kind of want to be avidly careful when you're walking so that you don't accidentally, you know, slip onto a train track and get squished by a train. No, doesn't look like you're gonna be able to see one. But you will be able to see the port a little bit better with this now. So as I said, that's all the Alaska port right there. Pretty much everything that we get imported all comes there. Now, when it comes to flying out of Alaska, and this is something that anyone who's obviously ever lived in Alaska, taken a vacation or travel or take out, you generally will fly, usually because the airport is just right across down in the corner there, you literally will fly over all this. So what I understand, I believe they call that Fire Island. I'm not sure, but you might not be able to see it because there's a lot of tree brushes, but just in where that giant cloud formation is, that is what we call Sleeping Lady. Now you might not be able to see it because of the clouds and how far away we are, but that's what we call Sleeping Lady. I didn't really know what that meant until I actually looked at the mountain itself. It kind of does look like a sleeping lady. If you notice, and you might not be able to see it unless you blow it up on your screen. On the end here, that's like her hair, that's her head. Then the little dip is like her throat. And then further down, it's kind of like her body is kind of laying down, and hence why they call that Sleeping Lady. You usually won't see it even when you're flying, coming out of Anchorage International. It's just one of those things we just don't even notice it. But you do notice a lot of beautiful scenery when you're super high in the sky. So as I said before, that's the harbor where you'll find a lot of boats out there doing a lot of crab fishing, deep sea fishing, stuff that we would get that we send to like places like Nusa Gaya, a lot of fish markets, places like that. They're generally out in there and they're just grabbing a whole bunch of stuff. So it's actually really, really fun thing to see. And then there's also a lot of houses around here. So as I said before, during the earthquake of '64, a lot of this here got leveled. So they just kind of built on it. And you'll notice it if you ever come to Alaska and you ever just kind of walk down around Ship Creek, and this is like the lower, I forget which street this is, but you'll notice that a lot of these houses kind of stack up. That's because the land and where it hit shifted. So see, as you can see, like right here where this land, the house, and then shifts down, as a result of the earthquake. So all that ground shifted to that, and they just kind of built on that, which is, you know, pretty cool. Like I said, a lot of Alaskans didn't know that. People who come up here and visit didn't even know that. And they actually built a lot of houses here over the last couple of years. So before, none of this was here. This was just kind of all just land. So these are nice little condos that they build over here, and they're not cheap. They're by far no means cheap. These are very expensive condos because living in Alaska, although it is not expensive in terms of the housing in a sense, it is, but not like stupidly expensive like in California, Texas, but the rent is crazy expensive. So as you can see, you'll see boards like this up here. They're constantly expanding, and yeah, it is it is pretty pricey to live up here. I'm not gonna lie, like some one bedroom apartments can go for like $1,200 or $1,300 a month, and they get you maybe 600, 800 square feet of home. So it is pretty pricey, but it's not as bad. This is, like I said, downtown. It's not as bad as you'd expect in, like, say, downtown Los Angeles or Chicago, Minnesota, a place like that. Very, very little crime happens around here. But so we're on 2nd Avenue, and this is kind of, like I said, where the 64 earthquake is. This is kind of like the start, and then from here, from 2nd Avenue, it just goes further up to 4th, 5th, and 6th, and then down to where I live. But as you can see, mostly just, there's like a lot of houses and stuff. As you can see, bike trails, coastal trails, but a lot of this stuff really wasn't here a couple of years ago, from the last time I actually did a vlog down here. A lot of this was just land. So they've been kind of expanding on this, and as I said before, it's not too bad. There's nothing wrong with Alaska itself or Anchorage. So if you love to retire up here, it's perfectly easy to do. It's very nice. There's a lot for a lot of the elderly and a lot of older people who love to do hiking, nature, stuff like that. You can certainly do that. But it just depends on, where you live, because like I said before, Alaska, although it's not expensive to live up here, rent in some places can be, in a sense. So like a house that you find in the lower 48 for like 3,500 square feet at like a couple $100,000 would cost you probably close to $1 million, give or take here. But there's a lot of stuff around here that you can do, a lot of biking, hiking, running. So, but I mean, I've been up here for 20 plus years or so, give or take. So I've had my fill of Alaska, so I'm looking to get out myself. But for now, it's not too bad. I mean, where else can you live where it's sun 18 hours a day? Like literally between March and August, September, 18 hours of sunlight. Like I said, right now it's about 4:46, almost 5, and it's still high bright out here. So in other states, when I was in Cali for VidCon, at this time, it was already half dark. So as you can see, they're building more houses over here. These are all going to be condos. And like I said, once you start living downtown, it does tend to get pretty pricey. I don't know how much these condos are going for, but I would imagine they're probably somewhere around the 700,000. Unless you're for rent, then you're probably looking at maybe 2,000-ish a month just to live down here. I don't really know much about these condos, but they look really nice. But yeah, they look pretty pricey. But like I said, as you live in downtown, the more expensive it gets. If you live downtown in any place, you kind of know just kind of how it is. So right now we are kind of just strolling and strolling. But there's a lot of land here. It's just downtown. It's just very crowded. And I think after COVID, kind of made a lot of businesses that, survived after tourism when it wasn't a lot during the lockdown. It did tend to make it a little harder for a lot of these businesses to survive. So they ended up having to close down. So, but other than that, yeah, it's a nice city. Not as big as what people expect. So if you're used to the lower 48, places like Chicago, Atlanta, Minnesota, Dallas, places like that, where you are used to, that kind of city life, you're not really going to find that in Anchorage at all, because Anchorage isn't that kind of a city. If you want that, then it'd be best just to kind of stay where you are, in a sense, or move somewhere else. But if you do love the outdoors, you do love hiking, you do love, seeing the occasionally walk out your front door, there's a moose there, or there's a bear running across the street. Yeah, you'll certainly find that here in Alaska. So, especially in Anchorage, even within the city limits like this, occasionally sometimes you will find stuff. So, but other than that, it's not too bad. But right now we're kind of on our way, taking a nice little trip down to Earthquake Park. So we are now entering Earthquake Park. As you can see, all this flats right here, that is the mud flaps. This is basically what used to be land, what we're walking on, kind of where we're stepping on, that used to be all solid land until the earthquake of '64 pretty much just leveled that land. Just made it all basically just marsh. So the reason why we call that the mud flats is because if you walk out here, you will get stuck in the mud. There have been tons of cases where people have just walked out there and, you know, they don't know, and or they're drunk or something, and then they end up getting stuck, and some people have, you know, died because they get drunk, they get sucked under. Others have been able to be rescued, but that is one of the reasons why they put signs out that tell people, hey, don't walk out there. You know, you get stuck out there and that's pretty much it and you're done. But as you can see, that's kind of the other port. That's the port entrance, or for like all the larger trolleys and fish stuff. They kind of go into here, they offload their fish, and then they just kind of just haul it up. And then as you can see, there's a barge over there. And then further over here, where I'm pointing at right over there, that is Anchorage International Airport. That is where pretty much everybody takes off and lands. It's one of the busiest hubs in the world, especially up here, because it pretty much connects everything. So if you're flying to China, Japan, generally this is where you'll stop. We just now finally got Amazon to actually up here. So we actually have an Amazon warehouse facility, and we actually have at the airport there is a Amazon Prime plane that assuming it lands there every so often. I don't know how often, but it does. And as I mentioned before, as you can see, you've got the trail, or you've got the train tracks right there. As you can see, it's blocked by this fence so that you don't accidentally do something stupid, but occasionally, every once in a while, you will get somebody who will attempt to jump the fence and then do something dumb, and then, well, you know, they either get died or, you know, they're saved, they're just, you know, at the last second. But it is a nice little trail that you can walk, and as you can see, nothing but clouds and blue sky for miles. That's one of the things I love about the beaches, especially when I'm in California and I'm going to places like Newport and Laguna. It's nothing but just beach. I mean, yes, there's people there, but beyond that, it's just beach. And that's what I like about this, is just you don't really see a lot of people. It's just, you'll see people along the trails, and that's just about it. But other than that, it's just mostly just, you know, land. And occasionally you'll see a plane every once in a while taking off or whatnot. But it is fun seeing. But that is basically what the mud flaps are here in Alaska, in terms of, you know, how that became what it is with the earthquake of '64. I can drop you a link down if you want to see that. But that's basically why all that land out there looks the way it looks, is because of the earthquake. And if you live here, like I said before, you have these nice little condos that basically just right out. They can see pretty much out in the bay. But as I said before, living downtown, it can be quite expensive. A little bit more expensive than most other places. But again, it just depends on, you know, where in downtown you want to live. The further or the closer you live to here, the more expensive it gets. So, well, that's all for today. I want to thank you guys for watching this nice little video. And like I said, just out here testing out my Insta360 Ace Pro 2 with the ND filter, along with the Hollyland Lark M2. Now I am on my way back to my car, and I'm going to get something to eat because I haven't eaten anything since I've been up. So enjoy your week. Have a great summer. See you next video.